This scandal didn't explode by accident. It was waiting. Trump's response was just the spark, and now the fire won't stop.
Victor Davis Hanson warns that NYC erupts as Mamdani's free bus scandal blows open. A mess exposed the moment Trump responded.
Socialism is in the news. Zoran Mamdani did the unthinkable. He was elected to be mayor of New York City, the financial capital not just of the United States, but of the world at large. And he's a devout socialist. But he has admitted, he likes to deny it, that he's really a communist because he's advocated seizing the means of production. And almost every day a quote from his past comes out that suggests that he's not just a socialist who wants the government to control utilities or housing, but he wants to seize the means of production. That means the industrial base and private property itself. Why is that scary? Because we have a whole generation who have gone through K through 12 and higher education and heard about the glories of statism, socialism, communism in the universities and our school system, but not the merits of capitalism.
Victor claims that it's not really socialism versus capitalism. It's that socialism has nothing real to offer, just slogans covering an empty toolkit.
And it's not really socialism versus capitalism. It is socialism has nothing to offer, and we know that for two reasons. If we look at the contemporary world in the recent past and in the present, everywhere a socialist paradigm has been implemented, it has done two things. It has destroyed the economy and made people poor, and two, it has deprived people of their civil liberties. I should add, it also has created greater inequality, at least in terms of the ruling elite who feel they're not subject to the ramifications of their socialist ideology, and they live a very refined and affluent lifestyle. Take a look, for example, the Soviet Union, when it collapsed, Mao's China collapsed. Cuba is in free fall since the Castro brothers took over in 1959. Venezuela was at one time the wealthiest country in Latin America. It's collapsed.
Victor Davis Hanson asserts that Mayor Mamdani's socialist vision is setting NYC up for failure, an experiment built on ideology instead of outcomes.
You can ditto the other countries that are collapsing to a lesser extent, Peru, Colombia. Anybody who adopts it has not done well. China is doing well, better than it did, because it has an odd mixture of a communist authoritarian government, but it allows free market principles to save the economy from itself. The same thing is true of Putin's Russia. It achieved levels of GDP, oil production that were superior to the communist past just simply because it had elements of a market economy. Some market economy is better than none.
Well, I think you had it the first two times. He is a socialist. To get power, all socialists say they're democratic socialists at one point. Otherwise, they would never be elected. They would just have to have a communist revolution. So they always usually come in legitimately. Fidel Castro did, Chavez did, Maduro did. The Bolsheviks seized power, but and they said they were going to have elections. They never did. And then the other thing is, he's a immigrant, but he's a very strange immigrant because he's an Indian implant into Uganda, his family is, and they were very, very affluent. So when he says that they're settler colonists or something, he was an Asian that went in as an elite into Uganda. Mm-hmm. And he is as legitimate or as illegitimate as Europeans are who settled, which he always criticizes.
Victor claims that Mamdani is a very strange immigrant, describing him as an Indian implant into Uganda, whose background complicates the narrative he now tries to impose on America.
And then his family came over here, and his mother was a very affluent filmmaker. His father was an endowed professor, and they were very controversial. His father wrote a book in 2004, defending, among other things. And when you see clips of him speaking in Uganda, he has a completely different accent. He sounds like he's from India. When he mentions Eugene Debs, of all the people that think that you've been elected, why wouldn't you mention Lincoln or JFK? Eugene Debs was a hardcore socialist in the Depression era. He ran, I think, for president 4 times and failed every time. Third-party candidate. So he's not a model of success. He never was, I guess you'd never say he led a national movement. I don't know why an American would appeal to Nehru if that's who he's appealing to in India, the Indian nationalists. Mm-hmm. It has no relevance for almost anybody who's listening to him. So I think what we're seeing is somebody who worked for his mother, who was pampered, very affluent, came to the United States, and under the protocols of DEI or whatever, he felt that it was very advantageous to play that side of the binary. And then he was very smug, he's very charismatic, he can ad-lib very well, extemporaneously. And he captured a certain zeitgeist. 4 things made him possible. Because he has no experience other than just minor legislative career. There's been a radical demographic changes. Almost 500,000 to 700,000 Jews have left New York. And we have a lot of people who were foreign-born in New York, 65 of whom apparently voted for him, or more or so.
Victor asserts that it was an odd-year election, with only a handful of state races on the ballot, creating a low turnout that ended up working entirely in his favor.
And then in addition to that, it was an off-year election. It wasn't just a midterm election. It was a odd year where there was only these few states that had offices. And so you were going to have a low turnout, which favored him. And then there was never a Bloomberg or Giuliani candidate that people could rally around as an oppositional. Instead, they bifurcated. They trisected the field with Eric Adams and Cuomo and Silva, and all of them had baggage. Nobody really, so they never united around, they never got together and said, we don't want a socialist communist, let's unite around somebody. And he took advantage of that. Almost the first thing he said as well in that speech, but more importantly, all along the campaign, he doesn't understand American history at all, so he was talking about nullification. He said, I want to tell you that the federal government is not coming in here in ICE, and we're going to not allow ICE deportations. He also said he was going to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. Well, what he's basically saying is that I'm going to order the New York PD to tell ICE they can't come in here when they are federal agents enforcing federal law and he has no idea of the Article 6 of the Constitution, that's the Supremacy Clause. It says, in matters of federal jurisdiction, federal officers take precedence over state and local law. And he has no historical sense, because that's exactly what happened that caused the Civil War. It was a root cause, but the federal government said, we own Fort Sumter. And South Carolina says, I don't care. It's in our area of jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, we're monitoring the federal waterways, and they fired on it. And then additionally, Lincoln said to them, you don't own all of South Carolina. There's federal post office, there's federal armories. What I'm getting at is he doesn't understand our system of federalism. There's federal post offices, there's federal offices, there's federal parks in New York, there's federal agents, FBI, ICE, you name it. And they have jurisdiction there. It's not his city completely. But if he's going to do that, then you can see what would happen if he said, well, Mr. Mayor, there's ICE agents at their headquarters on Broadway, and they are going out and they've got arrested people. And he says, stop them. And then you would have armed federal agents confronting armed. And we almost saw that in Chicago.
America's walking straight into a storm, and everyone's acting like it's a light breeze. This is how nations fall. We've seen this before in history. Decay from the inside, leaders asleep at the wheel, people pretending everything's fine.
Victor Davis Hanson warns that something serious is about to hit America. A breaking point, he says, has been building for years beneath the calm surface.
Have you heard this word lately that's been bandied about? Oligarchs, autocrats, dictators, but mostly aristocrats. In other words, that supposedly a small cabal of very wealthy people have snatched control of the government. And the Democrats, as the loyal opposition of the fighting middle class, is trying to stop it. They use the word plutocrats. Oligarch, just from the Greek word, the rule by the few. Plutocrat means the rule by the wealthy. Aristocrat means rule by the so-called best, or those people who claim they're better born. But they're using all of these terms to castigate, apparently, the relationship between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. But here's what's ironic. We didn't hear any of this during the Obama years, during the Clinton years, or during the Biden years.
Victor asserts that for 20 years, no one mentioned that the country was controlled by oligarchs. Power concentrated so quietly, most people never saw it happening.
In other words, for 20 years, no one mentioned that the country was controlled by oligarchs. Let me just look at the list for you of the 10 wealthiest people in the United States. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Warren Buffett, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Larry Ellison, Bill Gates, Mike Bloomberg. They all have one thing in common. They're all worth over $100 billion. And until recently, I would say the 2024 election, they were all against the Republican Party and were lavish donors for the Democrats.
Victor noticed how terms like oligarchs, autocrats, plutocrats, and aristocrats are suddenly being thrown around in political discourse.
Why they're angry now is because Jeff Bezos' Washington Post, which was a vehicle, a money-losing but still influential vehicle for leftist and democratic agendas, decided not to endorse either Kamala Harris nor Donald Trump. Elon Musk, who voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016 when he was beloved by the left because of Tesla, because of SpaceX, because of Neuralink, because of Starlink, also, according to what he said, voted for Joe Biden in 2020. Mark Zuckerberg, remember, put $419 million in his various PACs to absorb the work of registrars to great effect in the 2020 election. Mike Bloomberg probably has the single record. He used $1 billion to try to capture the 2020 Democratic primary nomination. $1 billion. So why are they so angry at the oligarchs when the oligarchs were synonymous with Democrats? And I should point out that George Soros put in $125 million in the 2022 midterms. He has the all-time record. It's assumed that he has spent $22 billion for left-wing candidates and left-wing PACs and left-wing foundations. Sam Bankman-Fried, the felon, he put over $100 million in the from 2020 to 2022, all on the side of Democrats and left-wing candidates. His mother was a bundler a stealthy bundler for billionaires in Silicon Valley.
Victor questioned why it suddenly becomes a concern only when multi-billionaires start questioning the Democratic Party, as if their power was acceptable until it challenged the narrative.
In the one last data point, in the 2024 election cycle, the Biden campaign, the Harris campaign, and the Trump campaign together raised $4.7 billion. But guess what? The Democrats raised $1 billion more than did Trump. So what is going on? There is an anger now that for the first time in 20 years, over 3 administrations, Clinton, Obama, and Biden, for the first time, there are multi-billionaires who are starting to question their Democratic loyalty. Larry Ellison, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, perhaps even Jeff Bezos. Most billionaires are still on the side of the left, but they don't tolerate any apostates. So they're angry they don't have a lock on the oligarchs, so to speak. I'll just finish with one reflection. Why did they start to bolt? Because the Democratic Party was so sure of the support of billionaires, they started making demands upon them and saying, you're going to give this amount of money. And if you want to play ball with us, this is the monopoly that will control artificial intelligence. You are included, you're not. We're going to get the FBI to partner with you, Mark Zuckerberg, and Meta, Facebook, to make sure you ban information injurious to the Biden campaign. You, Twitter, the old Twitter, you're going to have FBI. And they revolted. And Donald Trump came along and said, I welcome all of you because I'm not going to tell you who to vote for or what to do, but I'm going to look at you in a nationalist, populist manner. You are the William Knutsons, the Henry Fords, the Henry Kaisers of the production board. In other words, I'm going to go to bat for you so that you do not have your wealth confiscated in China, so that people in Europe do not impose special taxes on you just because you're making too much money or try to censor your news. In other words, I'm going to try to enlist you on the behalf of the country in a patriotic nationalist fashion. And they found that argument more persuasive than they did, you better give to us, and this is what you're going to do. And as a result, 30% of the billionaires bolted and are either now neutral or they favor the Republicans.
The Democratic Party is the party of the very wealthy, the plutocracy, and the billionaire class. Yet they still demand absolute loyalty and unwavering solidarity.
The vast majority, to repeat, still favor Democrats. The Democratic Party is the party of the very wealthy, plutocracy, and the billionaire class, but they demand absolute loyalty and solidarity, and any defections or apostates then cause them to go, I don't know what the word is, ballistic, that anybody would doubt their ability to control the big money in the United States. Big money in the United States is a democratic phenomenon. We're going to have more billions of dollars, which begs this question. They don't have the resources as they look toward the 2028 Olympics, they being Los Angeles, to fix this problem. So Donald Trump does, but Donald Trump says, I will fix it and I will put a czar there if you change your timber and forest management and hillside management. If you release more water from the Sacramento tributaries and keep that aqueduct and all the reservoirs full, and if you reform your insurance industry so you don't cap what the insurance companies can charge so that they don't go broke, and if you look very carefully at how you hire people in water, power, and fire management. That's a lot of ifs, because Donald Trump is against another impediment. A lot of people look at this devastation, and I'm not kidding, and they think, wow, this is a way to build a new Los Angeles. High rises, light speed, light rail, density, low-income housing. We'll take Pacific Palisades, we'll take Pasadena, we'll make it into sort of a European village. And some of you have been to Italy or France, and outside of the major cities, you can see what we're talking about. Large high-rises, condos, green areas, but the point is all controlled and subjugated by the same people who gave us the fire.
Everyone's scared to say it, but Obama left this country with cracks we're still falling through. His legacy wasn't unity. He lit a fuse, and now we're watching it burn.
Victor Davis Hanson warns that nobody dares say this about Barack Obama, except him, pointing to the influence and quiet power Obama still holds behind the scenes.
I'd like to talk about the ongoing melodrama of what Barack Obama knew or did not know in his involvement with Russian collusion, the hoax that plagued the Donald Trump 2016 campaign, tried to undermine his transition in 2016 and 17, and ate up the first 22 months of his presidency in 2017 and 18, and was found to be completely bogus. There are three blind mice involved in this tale. John Brennan, the former CIA director, James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, and James Comey, the former FBI director. And they all have new manifestations of their untruthfulness.
Critics are now circulating claims, unproven and hotly disputed, that Barack Obama may have urged intelligence officials to push narratives fueling the Trump-Russia drama.
Let's start with John Brennan. He's very angry right now because the trove that was released by Tulsi Gabbard of new documents and investigations may or may not have referrals come out of them, and Pam Bondi may file new charges. The problem that Brennan has is that he went to a meeting and he presented a false picture of CIA assessments. The so-called CIA heads of various divisions found no Russian collusion. They said to John Brennan, there's nothing there that we can see that Donald Trump colluded with the Russians. He rejected that, cherry-picked 4 or 5 other analysts, and then presented a false picture to Barack Obama. Or did he? Or did Barack Obama request that he do that? It'll be he said, but it's more likely that Barack Obama asked John Brennan to come up with the correct CIA assessments, sort of like Mr. Beria, the head of Soviet secret police during the Cold War at the end of World War II. He said, I have the, you find me the. So I have the Donald Trump, all I need is Russian collusion. And that was the methodology that they proceeded by.
Victor talks about John Brennan in stark terms, saying critics view him as acting like a loyal operative for Obama, carrying out the former president's agenda long after leaving office.
The problem with Brennan, though, is he, in the process of preparing this false assessment, he said again and again, both publicly but also under testimony, he didn't know anything about the Steele dossier. Didn't know anything about it. He didn't read it. It didn't compute into CIA assessment. That was a lie. That was a lie. We know now from other testimonies, especially from the Trove, that he did draw on the fake Steele dossier. He referenced it to other people. And the problem with John Brennan is this isn't the first time he's misled us. He lied about the Senate staff computers. That was under oath. He lied, remember, about Predator drones when he said there was no collateral damage. And remember, he lied also as one of the 51 intelligence authorities who tried to float that bogus idea that Hunter's laptop was cooked up in Russia. Then we come to James Clapper. He was sitting at this meeting in December of 2016 where he gave a false assessment and he misrepresented what the 18 intelligence agencies under his direction had found. They had not found Russian collusion, and yet he participated in this. He went so far as later to thanking and giving credit for Barack Obama for demanding that they find Russian collusion. He said if he hadn't have ordered us to do this, we wouldn't have found it, i.e. the subtext is there was no evidence in our intelligence agency for it, so we concocted it on the directive of Barack Obama. But remember, he lied too. He swore under oath to the U.S. Congress that the National Security Agency had never spied on Americans. That was an abject lie, and he was part of the 51 intelligence authorities who also lied to the American people in 2020 on the eve of the second debate when Joe Biden denied that Hunter Biden's laptop was authentic. He quoted the 51 authorities. The FBI, remember, at that time had it in his possession and had already authenticated it as genuine.
Then we come to James Comey, who insists he had nothing to do with the Steele dossier, a denial critics say only deepens the suspicion surrounding his role.
Then we come to James Comey. He also says that he had really nothing to do with the Steele dossier. The fact is, he was completely acquainted with it. His FBI offered $1 million. They were so desperate to validate it. They said to Christopher Steele, just give us some proof. We can use this. We'll give you $1 million. He couldn't even come up with He couldn't even come up with the substantive arguments to corroborate his own dossier, so he didn't get the $1 million. More importantly, James Comey has a problem. He leaked on an FBI device a conversation he had memorialized to the New York Times via a third party. James Comey, remember, went before the House Oversight Committee, as I said earlier, and lied 245 times. If you say, I don't remember, I don't recall, I don't know. Can you imagine an FBI director with all that knowledge at his fingertips saying, I don't remember, I don't know about the most important investigation in recent history? Let's sum up these three blind mice. There's new evidence that Barack Obama asked intelligence and investigatory heads like John Brennan, like James Clapper, and James Comey to find me evidence that you haven't found yet so that we can continue the Russian collusion hoax after it was ineffective in the campaign. Hillary lost the election. Now we want to sabotage. This is the subtext of the transition and his presidency. You go back, we only have a few weeks left. I'm a lame duck president, and bring me the right assessments.
Russian intelligence were reportedly concerned that they were being accused of colluding with Donald Trump by the Hillary Clinton campaign, a twist that left them stunned at how fast the narrative was spiraling.
The Dutch intelligence had tapped into Russian intelligence unknowingly to the Russians, and they were concerned that they were being accused of colluding with Donald Trump by the Hillary Clinton campaign. And yet they had intelligence that Hillary Clinton had actually hired, and we know now that that was true, through the paywalls of the DNC, the Perkins Coie law firm, the Fusion GPS political operation, to give money to Christopher Steele for this so-called Steele dossier that was proven to be fraudulent and the source of this entire hoax. So here's the point. That had been completely proven false both by the Mueller investigation, saw that no credible, but the intelligence agencies, one of these 18 or all of them or some of them, knew from information from the Dutch that there was no validity. But here's the second thing. Apparently, John Brennan and James Clapper, may or not James Comey, the head of the FBI, also knew from their own intelligence teams when they were trying to act on this information and prepare it for digestion by Barack Obama, the lame duck president who was on his way out. They said, wow, they may have wanted to tamper in or troll or get on the websites like the Chinese have done, but there was no evidence, according to our subordinates, our intelligence chiefs of these subdivisions, and Tulsi Gabbard, remember, oversees some of these well beyond the FBI or the CIA. There's no evidence that our team can find any evidence. Now, what's Tulsi Gabbard upset about? That was known to John Brennan. That was known to James Clapper. That was probably known to the FBI. But they have notes. They have information that when they prepared this daily, weekly digest of intelligence updates to lame duck Barack Obama in 2016 and into 2017, He ignored it. He did not want to hear that. He wanted more information pertaining to Donald Trump and the Russians colluding. It was almost like, you find me and I'll give you the... And so what did Brennan and Clapper allegedly do? They reversed the opinion of their own intelligence subordinates, and they crafted or fabricated after the election. Remember that, after the November 2016 election, and then, according to the wishes of Barack Obama, they created an intelligence falsehood, a false narrative, a fake narrative that Donald Trump, now the president-elect, soon to elect office, had been colluding with the Russians. And we know what happened after that.